Mr Chairman.
Honourable Amy Adams.
Yes, thank you, Mr Chairman. I do want to take an early call on this first part of the bill, recognising that one of the key issues that will be being considered by the House and Committee this afternoon is around the purpose clause and the changes that the government is recommending in the order paper in my name, and just to take the opportunity to address some of the matters raised by Mr Robertson in his contribution. Mr Chairman, just leading into that, can I make the statement first off by way of introductory comments in my first contribution this afternoon, that this is a bill, sir, that everybody, certainly as far as I've heard, all the major players recognise is long overdue, is much needed, and is an important piece of legislation to fill a gap in our framework that has been in place for some years, and which the previous government, sir, did not see fit to do anything about in their time in the House. We have come in and recognised that this is an important gap in the framework that does need to be passed, and sir, my concern about continual steps by the opposition to want to defer the passage of this bill rather than actually have to make a call on it and form a coherent view is pretty consistent with their current position, which is a reluctance to take a stand and an inability to address the clear divisions in their own caucus about whether or not they support mining, whether or not they support any activity in this space, and rather than form a coherent position, rather than vote for a bill that they don't want to do politically or vote against a bill that they know they can't justify, their option, sir, is just play for touch and try and come up with some procedural reason to get more delay, come into this, have more time without this environmental protection that everyone agrees is necessary into place. And in that respect, Mr Chairman, it is interesting to see that after the announcement of my SOP, we've had the Parliamentary Commissioner for the Environment come out in strong support of the passage of this legislation, saying she is happy with the form of the legislation and she's called for it to be passed into law. She has said she has called for it to be passed into law. The law is needed. She thinks it's in a good position and she's called for it to be passed, sir. And I think that speaks volumes. And the fact that the Labour opposition are still unwilling to support it, still unwilling to see this legislation put in place, sir, speaks more about the position they are in. At least, sir, the Green Party know what they're opposed to. We don't have any surprise in the fact that they're opposed, but at least, sir, they're prepared to take a stance rather than simply a political point score and try and kick for touch. So I want to comment on the changes to the purpose clause that are in this part of the bill and the supplementary order paper in my name seeking to change it. And we have, sir, decided that it makes better sense to have a purpose clause incorporating the principle of sustainable management. And I've talked in public comments around the reasons we've done that, and I want to repeat that here now for the sake of the House. That is reflecting the fact that we do see considerable benefit for all stakeholders in having a regime of sustainable management which is well defined in case law, which parties do understand, and which importantly provides a consistency of approach between matters within the 12-mile limit and those outside the 12-mile, between the 12 and 200-mile limit. And we can certainly see benefits, sir, in applications that will have impact on both sides of that 12-mile limit, having some consistency of approach. In that respect, sir, I wanted to comment and respond to Mr Robertson's allegations that while we have adopted what is a cousin of Section 5 of the RMA, Mr Robertson made comment that there was no equivalent in this legislation of Section 6 of the RMA, which guides decision-makers in carrying out their functions. In fact, Mr Robertson is quite wrong, and I would direct him to Clause 59 of the bill, which does exactly that, sir. While it's not in this part, I address it here because of the comments and concerns of Mr Robertson about the lack of an equivalent section of Section 6 of the RMA. And Clause 59 of this bill, sir, does exactly that. It lists the principles that decision-makers are to take into account and have regard to when they're making decisions in respect to this Act, and in that way, sir, absolutely mirrors the purpose of Clause 6 of the RMA in terms of its provision of information to decision-makers for them to take into account. So the other comment that I did want to make in this early contribution is simply to reiterate once again that there is clear statements that the bill is compliant with the international law of the sea and our obligations under it. Opposition members insist on trying to take a clause-by-clause look or a part-by-part look at those obligations. They are holistic obligations. They must be given effect to as a whole. Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Amy Adams.
Mr. Chairman, they specifically enable sovereign states to make arrangements for using the economic resources in that zone and a balancing provision. And, sir, that is exactly what this bill does, and that is why it has been cleared as compliant with our obligations under the international law of the sea and our other international obligations. So to continue with this line that suggests that it is not compliant is simply not correct, and it's not borne out by the information from our foreign agencies who are in charge of monitoring our obligations under those international conventions. So, sir, with the bill is an absolutely essential piece of environmental legislation. It is long overdue. The National League government is committing to getting it passed. We would call on other parties in this House who genuinely do want to see an increase in protection in the EEZ to work with us to see it brought into law, and we thank those parties that have given support, and we look forward to hearing the rest of the debate this afternoon.